Hello! I am a woman in my late 40s. I grew up in a very poor family, so I was unable to attend any private tutoring academies like other children. As a result, I did not have much time to spend with kids my age, and instead spent a lot of time playing by myself at home. One day, my mother gave me a maroon doll, and it quickly became my favorite toy. Whenever my parents were at work and I was home alone, I would place the doll on the dining room table and pretend to have meals with it. The doll was my closest companion. One day, my clothes got torn, and since my mother was not home, I was upset and worried. However, a kind neighbor's grandmother helped me by sewing it for me. That day, I learned how to sew from her, and it was a lot of fun. I started using pieces of fabric to make clothes for my doll. At first, I was not very good at it, but with practice, I became quite skilled. I was so engrossed in making clothes that as soon as I got home from school, I would immediately start working on new outfits for my doll. Then, when I was in 10th grade, our family faced a difficult situation. My father suddenly collapsed and had to be hospitalized. When I was in middle school, even though our family struggled financially, I was still able to receive spending money from home. However, after my father's hospitalization, our family faced severe financial hardship. I wanted to drop out of school and find a job, but my mother strongly opposed it. She said, "These days, even without a college degree, it is difficult to live without a high school diploma. I will not allow you to quit school. I will find a way for you to continue your education." I felt guilty that I could not afford to send you to tutoring academies to help you with your studies. But if you quit school, I will not be able to bear it. We cannot change the fact that your father is sick, so I will take on the responsibility, and you must focus on your studies. Because my mother pleaded with me, I stayed in school. My mother worked day and night to take care of my father, but unfortunately, he did not recover and passed away a few months later. My mother cried so much during the funeral, but after that, she never showed her tears to me. She said, "Marilyn, you must be strong and study hard. I don't have the confidence that I would be able to send you to college, but I am going to have you graduate from high school. Execute it any way I can, so don't think otherwise, and you must attend school." I wanted to quit school and work because of my dad's illness. We had a lot of hospital bills to pay and were heavily in debt. But my mom caught on to my intentions and warned me against it, making me promise her several times. My mom worked very hard. I also studied hard at school, giving it my all. Although my grades weren't high, I still ranked in the middle. Thus, I felt it would be a waste to go to a mediocre university. I wanted to earn money as quickly as possible and relieve my mom's struggles. As soon as I graduated from high school, I immediately got a job at a custom-tailored dress shop that did a lot of sewing. Because I loved making clothes and I wanted to work in that area where I felt I could excel and felt very confident about it. While mending or adjusting sizes, I learned how to take old clothes and transform them into current trendy styles. I used to only make clothes for my doll, but when I started making clothes for real people, it was a lot different, and I had much more to learn. I learned how to make buttonholes and use zigzag stitching to enclose frayed ends. My boss was impressed with how quickly I learned and how fast my hands were. I believe this was because I have always loved making clothes and have a natural aptitude for it. While working, I watched my boss design clothes to learn, and I bought books on clothing design to teach myself. Then I would spend all night trying to recreate them. At first, it took a long time, but as I continued doing it, I became faster. One day, I went to work wearing the coat that I made. My boss said it was well made and suggested that I make more and try to sell them. Since we didn't have many customers who would come all the way here to buy them, my boss suggested hanging one as a display and giving a few to other stores to see people's reactions. I was hesitant, but my boss's persuasion convinced me to try. With over 20 years of experience in this industry, my boss assured me that I have an eye for good design. So we decided to make a few and test them out. I shouldn't be burdened by this, my boss said. I agreed and hung the coat that I made to display it. Then, a few days later, the wholesale store called. "The coats that your boss left all got sold. Could you bring a few more? We would like more to be displayed." We took the one that was displayed in our store and delivered it while I made a few more. That's how the clothes that I designed and made started to sell. My boss then asked me to make a contract with her. "Marilyn, you have a talent for making clothes. Let's work together, okay? Since I've been here for a long time, it'll be quick to get other store accounts." I was happy that the clothes that I made got sold, and it was enjoyable, so I agreed. Bricks in order to make prettier and more comfortable clothes. I went to a bookstore and bought foreign magazines and patterns to make clothes and started to research more to improve my skills. Well, I studied and made clothes. Some sold well, while others didn't do very well. When I analyzed it, I could discern the clothes that people overseas liked and the ones that local people did not wear much. Although I didn't receive a formal education in college, I honed my skills on the job and developed a keen sense for discerning what people like. I started making many more designs geared for export. As orders increased, my boss found an OEM factory to make the clothes in volume. My mom was happy that I quickly became stable in my job. I felt sorry when you refused to go to college, but now that you are succeeding in the work that you are doing, I feel much more relieved. And I am very proud of you, Marilyn. Mom, don't think that way anymore. I'm really doing well. I want to pay off our debt as quickly as possible. I worked very hard, and 5 years later, I became independent from my boss. I paid off a lot of our debts. I had 4 employees to make clothes, and my designs were selling well. At age 28, I became a CEO. By that time, I met my husband. He also worked in the wholesale apparel industry and was supplying women's clothes to the wholesalers. So I saw him often in the wholesale stores, and it led to us dating naturally. He'd had graduated from college and was working for a company when he took over an apparel factory from his mother. It was a factory in name only, as he rented a whole floor in a large building in the wholesale corridor selling clothes with a few sewing machines to make clothes on a small scale. Since he worked in the same industry, we were able to communicate well. Most of all, I could rely on him. My mom was worried because I worked alone, and I felt relieved that I met someone that I could rely on. My boyfriend especially complimented me on my designing abilities. Marilyn, I think you have a good sense of design. You're better than those who graduated from design college. When I look at some other companies' designs, I feel like I could design it better as I get so disappointed with it. So I think no matter how much you learn, you can't beat people with talent. I also studied and researched a lot to educate myself. I didn't graduate from a college like you, Stephen, but because of that, I tried harder. Rather than having talent, I just have a passion for it, so I work harder. Even though I said that, I felt happy inside that he complimented me. I dated him for about 8 months and decided to get married and met our parents, leading for both sides of our family to meet to discuss our wedding plans. My boyfriend's father passed away, and he only had his mom. His mom kept repeating that she really liked me as her daughter-in-law. She complimented me too much to my embarrassment. I am amazed at how a perfect daughter-in-law like Marilyn is becoming a part of our family. Our families are similarly situated, so it's a perfect match made in heaven. How did you raise such an intelligent daughter? Thank you for your kind compliments. She still has a lot to learn, so I hope you will guide her well. I'll think of Stephen as if he is my son, and I'll do my best. With a friendly and warm atmosphere, our wedding preparations proceeded smoothly, and my boyfriend and I had our wedding in the fall. Shortly after we got married, my husband told me that it would be better if my company and his factory merged. That's not bad, but your factory is making clothes for other clients. Then, wouldn't it be difficult to add on our clothes as well? It might be in the short term, but it would be better if we looked at the long term ahead. Since we are doing the same work, wouldn't it be better to make your clothes at my factory? I think that would be mutually beneficial. However, I couldn't readily agree with it. I needed to see how well my clothes would be made. When I became independent, I worked very hard to secure the factory that I have a contract with. And because a trusting relationship had already been built up, I couldn't say that I would move the order right away. I'm sorry to say this, but I want to see a sample of our clothes made by your factory is necessary for me to cancel my contract with my current OEM factory and move to your factory immediately. As you know, this is a business decision. I understand your concerns, but I need to ensure that my clothes will be of the same quality. I apologize if it is difficult for you to cancel the contract at this time, but I do not feel comfortable making a sample for you. My husband told his mother about the situation, and she invited me to her house. As you know, a husband and wife should be united, so it is only natural for me to move my business to my husband's factory once we are married. However, I cannot simply make a sample without proper reason. Stephen's factory is not in need of making a sample for my type of business. It is a factory that I have worked hard to build and pass on to him. If you say otherwise, it is humiliating for me. Mother, I did not mean to offend you. I also need to show the factory CEO that I have a contract already. It is true that Steven's factory has no experience in making my design clothes, so I need to confirm their capabilities. I am sorry for the way I spoke earlier. I do not mean to say that I must approve the sample to my liking. I simply want to ensure that my business will be in good hands. Did you formally study design or apparel manufacturing? I have graduated as the top student in a private apparel academy. Stephen, on the other hand, has a business major and has also studied apparel design separately. From a third person's perspective, who do you think would be better? She did not hesitate to degrade me, and since that day, both my husband and his mother have treated me coldly, as if I were invisible. Eventually, I gave in to my husband's wishes. We had only been married for a short time, and I did not want to fight anymore. Then they got all excited and even changed the name of the factory to my brand name and started to make my clothes in earnest. Because it was the first time making designs in various sizes and large quantities, the factory workers seemed to be struggling, but they eventually got used to it. I only slept for 2 hours a day and had to inspect each piece of clothing that was made. Otherwise, I would have too many defective clothes and couldn't let them go. Eventually, the workers got used to it, and the number of defective clothes started to decrease, so my husband said we needed more help and to increase the number of employees. I thought he could handle it. However, I still felt that I needed to have my clothes made at a larger and more experienced factory. We had pieces made at factories with an automated system, but my husband's factory wasn't able to handle the large quantities smoothly. When I was thinking about bringing up the subject again, my husband increasingly did not come home. He kept saying that he had to work into the night or he was busy with something, but I knew the factory's schedule well, so I thought it was strange. Then I heard something shocking. A final filing report that my husband registered my brand and his name was mailed to the house. I was so shocked and ran over to the factory, but I couldn't meet my husband. The people at the factory wouldn't let me into the office. When I looked around, there were 2 people sitting in the design team. When he told me that he was hiring new employees for the factory, it wasn't just those workers. I knew that I should register my brand for copyright, but since I was making clothes for export and usually sold them to wholesalers, I didn't think it was that important to register my brand. But my husband knew that many regular customers were asking for my brand, so he registered it in his name and opened up a retail store by the university. He never discussed any of that with me and did it all on his own. He had to drop me, so obviously he didn't say anything. Only then did I realize why my husband and his mother wanted me to make my brand in their factory and pestered me so much. Since I couldn't get hold of my husband, I called his mother, but she also didn't answer the phone. I felt I couldn't just sit and do nothing, so I went to her house. Then I saw my husband coming out of the house with a woman, and my mother-in-law followed. So I rushed over and held onto the door. You surprised me. What are you doing? Did something happen? You surprised me. Mother, who is that woman with Stephen? Also, did you know that Stephen registered my brand in his name, didn't you? How could you not say a word to me? That woman is an investor who's helping us set up our factory properly. She's young but has a lot of money and is capable, so I told him to invite her over. I wanted to ask her to take care of our company. What's the big deal about Stephen registering it in his name? That's why we didn't say anything to you. You were so negative when you moved your orders to our factory. You shouldn't work like that. Do you know that? Then she slammed the door shut and left me standing outside. No matter how many times I rang her doorbell, she didn't come out, and my husband didn't answer my calls. A few days later, my husband sent me divorce papers claiming that he couldn't live with me because I didn't trust him and accused him groundlessly of having an affair. It stated that I would inspect every detail of my husband's work like a neurotic person, so he couldn't put up with it any longer due to stress. I realized that I was completely taken. I wondered if he approached me intentionally for this, even from the start. It was just my thinking, but I knew for sure that we had both changed. So I got divorced and came back to my mom's house. My mom comforted me and told me that I could start again. We had come this far, overcoming so many hardships and obstacles. So I knew I could overcome this too, Marilee. You have your abilities, so don't worry. I regained my courage and started working again. My mom prepared a working studio where I could make my clothes. I designed some pieces and sent them to my former boss, and she started selling them along with her own designs. I was thankful for that. However, I thought I needed to find other methods. At that time, the internet shopping mall was beginning to become popular, so I decided to sell my clothes online. I got introduced to a web designer to create my website and hired students aspiring to become models. I paid them daily to wear my designed clothes and take photos to upload. After a few months, I didn't make any profits, and I started to wonder if I should give up. But those who tried on my clothes started to return it to buy more, and it spread by word of mouth. Thus, I started aggressively marketing online here and there. I spent a lot of money on that too, and I worked hard, practically not sleeping at night. Then someone put up a post on our blog wearing my clothes, and it received great reviews. As a result, more people started enrolling in my shopping mall to order more clothes. That's how my shopping mall became very popular, and I hired more employees to systematically manage it. People who wanted to sell their accessories and shoes contacted me, and I made contracts with them. As my mom said, I got back on my feet. From an outsider's perspective, it may seem like I became successful easily, but I faced my fair share of difficulties and hardships. The biggest one was my ex-husband's betrayal. However, I was happy that I overcame it and succeeded again. It took a long time for my internet shopping mall to become financially stable. One day, my mom and I went out to eat on the outskirts of town and unexpectedly ran into someone. It was my ex-husband, who is now working a menial job. I noticed him, but I chose to ignore him. My mom, on the other hand, was shocked and called out to him. He noticed us, but he didn't come near us. We just parted ways that day. However, I was curious about my ex-husband, so I inquired about him. I learned that his factory had declared bankruptcy a year ago and closed down with a heavy debt. The woman who had invested in his company had also married him, but when the company ran into trouble, she claimed she was tricked and filed for a divorce, taking her money and leaving. I felt a sense of justice, but at the same time, I felt bitter. The brand that I had built from scratch had disappeared just like that. It was then that I realized I hadn't seen my brand in the market for a long time. I was too busy to notice. The next day, my ex-husband somehow found out and came to see me at my office. It had been a long time. He commented that I must be doing well. Then he asked if we could get back together, saying that he had been short-sighted and shouldn't have left me. It was embarrassing, but I couldn't believe he was asking me that after everything he had done. I told him I had nothing to say to him and asked security to escort him out. Don't let strangers into my office. Don't be angry and listen to me. At that time, I was trying to do well, but you criticized me at every step of the way, so I felt as if things wouldn't work out. Don't think those lies would work with me. After I got divorced, don't you think I didn't hear anything about you? Everyone told me that you and your mother changed after you registered my brand into your name. Everyone knew that. I was the only fool who never suspected it. So, are you asking me to get back to you? If you say that once more, I'll sue you for fraud. Don't you think I could do that? When I screamed at him, he couldn't say anything and left. Before, and now, he still told every little detail to his mom. Next, his mother came to see me. Honey, how have you been? How's your mother? It's been so busy that I didn't realize how fast time has passed and I didn't even get to say hello. Why would an old lady like you say hello to my mom? Why do you call me honey? And why do you mention my mom? We are not on those terms. We are complete strangers. How could a relationship be cut off just like that? Still, we have feelings left since we spent time together. It's very awkward to hear you when you degraded me just because I wasn't moving my orders to your factory. I won't get together with your son ever, so leave. When I said it coldly, she knelt in front of me, begging for my forgiveness. I am very sorry. We did wrong to you. Couldn't you reconsider just once? Please give us one more chance. If I hadn't become this successful, would you have said that to me? Didn't you look down on me, calling me a mere high school graduate and stealing my things? Then why don't you have a conscience? I'll put up with it this time, but if you come back here again, I won't let it go. But she kept asking for another chance, and I refused. When my ex-husband came back again, I called a security guard to stop him from entering my company. Both of them called me, and I hung up on them. Then they stopped coming and did not call me again. After that, I haven't heard what happened to them. Erin regressed. Now I'm in my 40s, so I remarried a man who was once divorced like me. At one time, I swore that I would never remarry, but I met a warm and kind man, so I changed my mind. He is a teacher in middle school. I am a middle school student and a family man who is very kind to my mom. I am now living very happily, and I feel like I am being rewarded for living and working diligently. The greatest fortune is that we are all healthy. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope all of you will find happiness and good fortune in your lives. Of course, being healthy is the most important thing. Take care, and please support me by leaving your wise comments in the comments section. Liking and subscribing would also be a great help to me. Have a wonderful day.